I probably shouldn't tell you this, but sometimes I read the ends of books first. I know, it's terrible. But sometimes the suspense about what's going to happen next is so overwhelming that I just can't stand it. Besides, if I know the end, then I can go back to the beginning and read the book from there and read it in a more relaxed way. Now, as an author, I can probably rationalize that it's educational, that if I know the end, I can deconstruct how my fellow author got there and why. So it's not so much a spoiler as it is research. In real life, though, we can never know how an adventure will end or even what's going to happen next. And depending on how you look at it, that's either the good news or the bad news. A therapist might tell me that because my parents were divorced when I was about 6, a stunning turn of events if I remember correctly, it made me hate surprises. Do not give me a surprise party. Do not say to me, guess what? I don't want to guess. It made me wary, so wary of when the next rug was going to get pulled out from under me. So I began to plan and try to take control so nothing surprising would ever happen to me again. Now, occasionally, this attitude toward life has really helped me. I have this dear friend, Mary, who's categorically incapable of not telling you the end of movies. Most people hate this, not me. Oh, she'll say, I saw the best movie. I wish I could tell you the end of it, but I know I'm not allowed to. That's okay, I say, you can tell me. Really, she says, I can tell you? Sure, I say, tell me the end. Oh, she says, you're such a good friend. But this passion for control, this obsession, mine at least, it's a losing battle. I can control the pages of a book I read, but the pages of my life, not so much. And sometimes, just when I think I have things under control, that I think I know what's going to happen, that I'm totally in charge, that my plan is going to work, sometimes it turns out that I was wrong. And slowly, it began to dawn on me that some of the best things in my life have happened without my planning. And even more surprising, out of adversity. Good out of bad. Serendipity. Life is going to bring us surprises, but sometimes those surprises can turn into joys. I grew up in really rural Indiana, so rural that you couldn't see another house from our house. And my sister and I used to ride our ponies to the library to get books. I know. It sounds cute now, right? But in reality, it was lonely. It was lonely. In fact, my only real friends were characters in books, Nancy Drew and Sherlock Holmes and Hercule Poirot. I was super unpopular and so bookish and so nerdy that basically I spent my adolescence reading mysteries up in the hayloft of the barn behind our house, alone. I was such a loner that when it came time for middle school superlatives, you had those, right? Best dressed, most likely to succeed, most popular, right? Well, I wasn't voted any of those. I was voted most individual. Most individual. Now, these days, most individual could be kind of cool, kind of unique. Most individual, even desirable. But back then, when I was 14 and named Harriet, and all the cool girls were Debbie and Linda, most individual was not what I wanted. And I knew what that meant. I knew that most individual meant most misfit, most unlike the rest of us, most we don't want to sit with you at lunch. They put my picture in the school paper upside down to show how weird I was. That was a surprise. So I went home so miserable and so doomed as only a 14-year-old girl can be. And I said to my mom, this isn't fair. This isn't fair. The world isn't fair. They cannot do this to me. The world isn't fair. And my mom cuddled me and comforted me, as moms do. But later, she took me aside and she said, listen, kiddo, you're griping that the world is not fair. She said, well, let me tell you something, honey. The world isn't fair. The world is not fair. And you're just going to have to get used to it. And I remember even then, at age 14, I remember thinking, why? Why do I have to get used to it? And I vowed at that moment that when I grew up, I was going to do something to make the world more fair. I was going to change the world. I was going to make a difference. I was going to have it matter that I existed. If I had been happy in middle school, would I be living the life that I live now? I don't know. But because of that moment at age 14, I found a goal. But good out of bad, serendipity, my path to that goal did not go as I had planned. When I got out of college, I decided I would change the world by going into politics. So I worked in several political campaigns back home in Indiana. But sadly, not one candidate I ever worked for actually won. So this is when, if you listen to the universe, as I try to do, the universe was saying to me, find another career. And I had to, because I was unemployed. So it was 1970, and 20-year-old me decided I would change the world by becoming a journalist. So I went to the biggest radio station in Indianapolis, and I said to the news director, I'm here to apply for the job as a radio reporter. And the news director said, great, where was your last job as a radio reporter? So I said, well, no, I've never been a radio reporter. That's okay, he said. Television reporter? Magazines? Newspaper? No, I said. Did you graduate from journalism school, the guy asked me. No. He says, did you ever take journalism? I had nothing, no. You can see where this is going, continued unemployment. Finally, he says, when you were a little girl, did you hand out mimeograph newspapers door to door in your neighborhood? No, I had nothing. So finally he says, you seem like a very nice young woman, and I know I could teach you to be a reporter, but I really don't have time. He says, finally, can you tell me one good reason why I should hire you? Okay, I can confess, that question I had planned for. Yes, I said, I can give you a good reason. I said, it's 1970 and your license is up for renewal at the Federal Communications Commission and you don't have any women working here. And then I just smiled. And the next day I had my first job in broadcasting. And I've been a reporter ever since that day. I've won 36 Emmys for investigative reporting. We've changed laws and we've changed lives. We've got people's homes out of foreclosure and millions of dollars in refunds and restitution. All because I was voted most individual? Maybe. It could be. But then my good out of bad journey continued. My husband, okay, that was a surprise. It was 24 years ago, and I was having kind of a terrible summer. One of those summers where you think, okay, I'm alone, I'll be alone, I'm fine, I don't need anyone, I'm alone, I'll just be alone, I'm fine. You've had those. And then a friend called me and asked me if I wanted to go to Nantucket for a week to share a house with her and another couple. So I did what any control freak would do. I said no. I had plans. Of course, I had plans. But then when I hung up the phone, I thought, wait a minute, Hank, you're an idiot. You know, of course you're going to go to Nantucket. Just call her back and say, yes, it could be fun. So I did call her back, and I did say yes, and I packed my bags, and we went to Nantucket. I took a couple bathing suits and my book and tennis rackets, and I think even a bike. But because it was just going to be my friend and this other couple, I didn't take any makeup. Now, if you know me, that's kind of cataclysmic. It's at least unusual. Okay, so we go to Nantucket, and there's this beautiful house, and I walk in, and there's my friend and the other couple, and over in the corner, surprise, surprise, is the handsomest man I have ever seen. So I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have any makeup. Get me to the CVS. But that turned out to be Jonathan, and we have not been apart since that day. And you know, we don't celebrate that anniversary, though. We don't celebrate that anniversary of the day we met. We celebrate the anniversary of the day before we met. And we call that You Never Know Day, because you never know what wonderful thing is around the next corner. I guess I was beginning to learn that you don't have to plan everything. One more story, one more good out of bad journey. It was 15 years ago, so I was 55. And I was sitting in my office at Channel 7 deleting spam from my email. It was back in the day when spam filters didn't work as well as they do now. So what I would go do every morning was go in and delete the spam from my computer so I could get to the good stuff. But one morning, I opened a spam by mistake. It was a spam that the headline, the subject line said, "A new refinancing deal for you." But the body of the email was what looked like lines from a Shakespearean play. So I thought, why would someone put lines from a Shakespearean play in an email with the subject line, "A new refinancing deal for you"? An email that millions of people were going to open or not, just at random. Why would someone do that? And my brain said to me, maybe it's a secret message. And I thought, my book, secret messages in computer spam. What a great idea for a mystery novel. Could you do that, right? Could you do that? And how could you do that? And who would do it? And why? And what would be the point? And who would get killed? Because, of course, it was going to be a mystery novel. And who would be the intrepid sleuth who would solve that mystery? So I went home and I said to my husband, "Sweetheart, listen to this. I have a great idea. I'm going to write this mystery novel that I've always wanted to write. I'm going to write a book." And Jonathan says, "Great, sweetheart." He says, "Do you know how to write a book?" And of course, I remember this perfectly. I said, "How hard can it be? You know, I've read 1,000,000 books." So I soon learned how hard it could be, crazy hard, ridiculously hard. But surprise, surprise, I realized that I had spent the past 30 years, the 30 years before, practicing how to write it. As a news reporter, I've written thousands of stories with a beginning and a middle and an end, with the character who you care about and a problem that needs to be solved, where the good guys win and the bad guys get what's coming to them, and in the end, you change the world a little bit, just like in a novel. And that Secret Messages in Computer Spam became Primetime, my first novel, which won the Agatha, surprise, surprise, for Best First Mystery, and was the beginning of my crime fiction career. All because of a random spam that I could never, not ever, have planned. And here's the rest of the surprise. As I began to write my novels, I began to realize that I did not know the end of my book's story. that as I was writing, I was just letting the story unfold in my imagination, just letting it evolve. And in all the books I've ever written, and I just sent in my 12th, I just take things as they come. And one more surprise. I realized that when I started writing, as I started writing, I had no plan. I had no outline. I had learned that the thing to do was just see what the characters want and how far they'll go to get it and what decisions they make and what they do about that and why. Even the end, even the bad guys, I don't know who the bad guys are when I'm writing the book. So now when people say to me, wow, the end of your book, you really surprised me. I'm like, yeah, me too. Wasn't that a surprise? I mean, talk about a surprise ending. I surprise myself every day. And just like life, I love that. So maybe I'm beginning to learn that surprises can be a good thing. Because in real life, our stories are not written. Our answers cannot be known. Even our questions cannot be known. And that's a good thing. That's reassuring. That's even exciting. Because you never know what wonderful thing is around the next corner.